Well, hello, everyone. My name is Joe Guzman. I'm Vice President of Partner Development at Kahua. Thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to welcome you to Kahua's monthly partner webinar series. Kahua is best known for our collaborative construction program and project management software. Our robust package solutions are delivered with an integrated low-code development environment that delivers extreme flexibility when customers need it. Our flexibility and our capabilities are becoming recognized around the world. Another key component of fueling our growth today is our growing partner community. Kahua allows our partners with varied backgrounds and experiences to leverage our cutting-edge technology to create services, apps, other custom solutions that aren't generally found outside of Kahua. Our partners are delivering extreme value to customers in a multitude of industry sectors by doing this. So today our guest is Gafcon. Gafcon is insights on the concept of the digital twin. Gafcon Digital's cyber build approach enables integration of all construction disciplines into a single source of information. This helps deliver improved data collaboration along with improved human collaboration, and ultimately delivers more predictability in cost, schedule, quality, safety, and risk reduction. So with that brief introduction, I'd like to turn things over to Chris Hussey and Brett Moushon from Gafcon. Welcome, Chris and Brett.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. This is Chris Hussey from Gafcon. I'm the sales side of this puzzle, and with me is Brett Moushon, who is the Director of VDC Innovation at Gafcon Digital. I'm going to lay out digital twins from 25,000 feet. I'm going to give you an overview of what this new capability is that's starting to make inroads here. And as Joe said, this is all about the single source of truth. And what we actually do is we actually build the project before the project is ever built. Oh, well, that was a mistake. Hold on. I hit a button and it didn't like it. There we go. 6 most expensive words. That's how we've always done it. Well, it's time for a change, and let me explain what that change is all about. And welcome to the event horizon. I use this term in my LinkedIn posts a lot. And let me explain what an event horizon is. An event horizon comes from astrophysics, and it is a point in a plane in space where a planet or a star gets sucked into the unforgiving pull of a black hole. Well, the construction industry's event horizon is the digital twin. You step through this plane and everything changes with the way the construction industry works. So let me explain a little bit about this. Let me give you a definition of a digital twin. A digital twin is a virtual representation of real-world entities and processes. Digital twins are motivated by outcomes, tailored by use cases, powered by integration, built on data, and implemented in software environments. Now, there are a wide variety of digital twins out there. Gafcon's area of expertise, our vision, is that of a building, a facility, an asset, be it vertical or be it horizontal. So what will this approach do for you? Well, in the beginning, when everything starts back in the pre-design phase, we actually anchor a digital thread that runs through the entire life cycle of this building or asset or facility. And it not only runs through the physical life cycle, but it also runs through the digital life cycle. So we're going to touch on 5 different areas of a digital twin and what this is all about. There is going to be a lot of information here don't even try to write it all down. If you need a copy of this presentation, I'll see if I can get it for you. So let's start off with, what do we consider, what do you own? Let's define what an asset is. Well, is it a single building? Is it a campus? Is it a city? Let's get a little crazy. Is it a space station? Is it a lunar colony? You name it. Now, is that campus? Is it one site or is it multiple sites? And from the other piece of this, from an inventory perspective, what's inside the facility? I mean, you've got the HVAC, you've got the electrical, you've got the elevators, you've got chairs. I mean, everything inside a digital twin is the duplicate of what will be in the physical model, okay? And one of the strong pieces of all of this is the identical systems or identical pieces that are throughout the building. Because as we build the model, all the identical pieces can be tied together. So if you get to a point where, wait a minute, I don't like the way the glass is on the facade of the building, well, you've got, I don't know, pick a number. I don't even know what the number is. Is it 4,000 pieces of glass on the facade of a building? Well, 2,000 of them are this size and 1,500 are that size. They're all tied together. But what does this all look like? Well, this is a really good representation of what a digital twin can look like. You could open this model up and walk into this model. You could touch the lighting on the ceiling of this model, and it would tell you who made it, what type of light bulbs are in it, what's the energy consumption. It carries all of its metadata. Now think about that for a second. Every single piece inside a digital twin carries its metadata with it through the entire life cycle of the building. We'll come back to this. But why do I need a digital twin? Well, there's a number of different reasons. One of the key pieces of this whole thing is real-time data-driven decisions. And it's the maintenance and operation teams that are the real winners as the facility is commissioned and goes into the operation stage, okay? We're going to give to the maintenance and operations teams a 100% accurate, fully contented, fully censored, data-driven model of the facility. The physical world, the physical building is going to be censored, and it is going to feed data from those sensors into the digital twin. So the physical world will talk to the digital world. This data flow becomes a competitive advantage. So imagine the reduction in risk, cost and schedule, and the increased in quality when you actually build the facility before you actually build it. And all of this becomes a competitive advantage. So let's take a look at the documentation side of this. I mean, we're talking about a lot of data here. So let's figure out how this all comes together. How is the facility or asset originally designed? Well, it starts off in pre-design and design as a BIM and is transitioned to a digital twin as the model matures. Now, how is the asset constructed? We're actually going to virtually prototype the building. And let me explain a little bit about virtual prototyping. I used to do this in the 2000s for the aerospace and defense, the automotive and the heavy industry, and a number of other industries. We're actually going to build your facility in a computer environment. The accuracy is going to be down to that of an inch. So we're going to find every single mistake in the model before we ever break ground. Now, back in the 2000s when we were doing this, our clients got a 20 to 25% increase in their productivity using virtual prototyping. They make it in the computer, get it right, and build one prototype. We can also do this for a facility that already exists. The technology's out there to do laser scanning. It's an easy one to do. So if you've already got a facility that you're going to do a renovation on, you know, a digital twin can be created. We'll bring in the laser scanning equipment and laser scan the whole place. One of the key pieces here, this is all about data. So all of the data is collected from design into procurement and construction, commissioning, and into operations. In the past, data has been lost or forgotten or just not even entered into the environment. We collect it all. But where is all this data stored? Well, it's stored in the various applications, but it's also brought into a data lake where we can push business intelligence on it. We can create executive dashboards. The reporting, it's real time, it's past performance, but it's also predictive analysis. It's also forward looking. So what data is stored? Well, I'm not going to read this one to you, but as you can see, doing a construction project, there is a lot of data. And this is what is one of the pieces, one of the interesting problems with a digital twin is how do you integrate all of these systems so that you can collect all of the data? That's Gafcon's secret sauce, is the ability to integrate 9 different environments to create a digital twin. But let's take this another step. Where is everything located? Well, geolocation is one of the key pieces of all this. So let's start with a building. Where's the building located? And what coordinate system will be used? Now this can actually get a little crazy here. If it's on the Earth, okay, we know what the coordinate system on the Earth is, and there's the building right there. Well, what happens if it's in a geosynchronous orbit around the globe? Or what if it's sitting on the moon or sitting on Mars? Now you've got different coordinate systems that you've got to use in those different environments. And where are all the components inside the facility? Well, again, every piece inside the facility is tagged with all of its metadata, so we know where everything is located. Oh, and by the way, which facility in the campus is it located in? One of the fun pieces of this geolocation capability is the ability to do wayfinding. One of our clients has a collection of campuses around the globe, and they have issues with getting people from point A to point B inside these massive campuses. Well, you'd be able to walk in and type into, I need to go see Steve in finance, and it'll say, well, he's in building 14. Here's how you get there. And it'll give you a little map on how to get to Steve in building 14 on the 7th floor. And there's also one, where has everybody been inside the facility? So it really comes down to who or what is where. So here is this one was used to figure out flows of people inside a particular floor of a building. You can see them in the break room, you can see them in the men's room, in the lab. Hans's office is a really busy place. One of the things the environment will tell you is, hey, you guys built a 20-person conference room over on the 7th floor. It's never had more than 8 people in it. So when it comes time to do a renovation on that floor, that 20-person conference room is going to go to a 10-person conference room. And there's also this digital building life cycle. I talked earlier about the life cycle of the physical building. Well, there's actually a life cycle for the digital building also. So it's data-based. It's created during the design and construction phases, and it's used during the maintenance and operation phases. It starts off as a BIM-based environment. Procurement's part of this through design and construction, and then again in the maintenance and operations side of the puzzle. There is a full PMIS integration here. We can't do this without a PMIS. It's one of the reasons that we're partnered with Kahua. There's a full document management system here. There's offsite manufacturing. We do a BIM-based supply chain. And from the digital twin itself, it can be used for tenant improvements, retrofits, and renovations. And then just like the actual physical building, the model itself can be decommissioned. It'll just be packaged up and just will sit in storage. And if it ever needs to be used again, the model can be reopened. So how are things performing inside the building, inside the model? Well, let's explain this. So you're going to collect all of the historical data. So that's all there for reporting and maintenance records. But in the present, you've got real-time data coming in from the physical world into the digital twin. And that's because of all the sensors in the physical world. We put together dashboards and reports to explain what's going on in real time. And from the future of the whole deal, we can do predictive maintenance on the various aspects inside the facility. So that comes down to what's your critical spares inventory. But what is all this data telling us? Well, let me give you an example. Here's a temperature map on a floor inside a particular building. Something's keyed off here in the back corner where you got this red little tag. Well, okay, before sending somebody up there to figure out what's going on, you better figure out which ducts are feeding into that office. So you pull up the ducting system for that same floor, and now you know exactly which air handlers are feeding the actual air into that office space. And what is this all telling us? Well, there is the project data ecosystem inside this whole thing. So you've got the data stores in the BIM world with the design model, with the consolidated construction model, and with the record model. But then you've also got the external data stores. You've got the estimate, you've got the PMIS, which is handling standards, processes, workflows, cost, schedule, the whole 9 yards. You've got the schedule, you've got the commissioning, you've got the CMMS, and you've got the digital twin. So how do we go about improving performance when you have all of this data? Well, this is all about real-time fact-based analysis. So how do we do this? Well, we can actually do fact-based decisions, but it's the physical asset equipment management. You have a total view on cost and schedule performance. You've got the data lake. This next one, dynamics of occupation. How has the facility, how is it being used? Is it being used efficiently? And if it's not being used efficiently, what changes do we need to make it? So for instance, there was that 20-person conference room that wasn't being used efficiently. But you've got the operational data, the behavioral, the energy, and also the status data of everything inside of it. On top of this sits the real-time feedback loop as to what's going on with the building itself. And then historical performance and predictive analysis. Prescriptive maintenance and critical spares. I mean, these are things that we wish we had, or but now we can have, I guess it's a better way of putting it. So how do we improve? Well, we take a look at the sensors and what are they telling us? Well, here's a heat map that shows what was going on a particular floor at one of our clients. So elevator makes total sense, water cooler, lunchroom, different offices. Now, now that we're dealing with COVID, this becomes an issue. How do we keep everybody separated and still, allow them to use the actual office themselves? Now, the real winner for a digital twin is the operations side of the puzzle. They now have, as I said earlier, a 100% accurate, fully contented, fully censored, data-driven model of the asset under their care. These models allow for physics-based analysis. You can do structural analysis, you can do CFD, computational fluid dynamics, which means, let's do it from an acoustics perspective. What's going on with the airflow and the heat inside the buildings? The actual visual model itself, you can use virtual reality and augmented reality. I actually did a stint in the VR and AR worlds. If somebody asked me where would I put my digital twin? I mean, there's a number of different environments out there right now. I drop a digital twin into a gaming engine, and just because of the ease of use inside of a gaming engine. So it actually, that your model becomes a game. You can walk down the halls and turn a wall X-ray so you can see exactly what's inside the wall, all the electrical, all the plumbing, etc. You can do analytical modeling and then transactional business modeling on this too. We talked about the physical asset equipment management, cost and schedule, the data lake. Again, now you have the dynamics of the occupation of the building and the real-time physical feedback loop on the assets, the performances, and the performance and the processes inside of it. And then to the predictive and critical spares. I'm going to turn this over to Brett and let Brett finish this up for us. Just a second.
Great. Thank you, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining this. I'm going to talk a little bit about today about how to practically apply digital twins and kind of some of the things we're seeing along this journey for customers that we work with. Just a couple of things. I'm going to kind of focus this a little bit. We work primarily with owners and a lot of serial builders. And so I'm going to really use that lens on this. The other thing I'm going to talk about as well is kind of cutting through some of the hype. Digital twin is such a buzzword right now, and there's getting to be more and more definition around the built space for it. It's not a new concept. This has been out there for a while on the manufacturing and product side. Think of Boeing and airplanes and cars and rapid prototyping. Same sort of concept. Now we're adopting it more for buildings, and different types of applications. And so when you say digital twin and people are talking to you about it, be sure to ask the question, what do you define as a digital twin? Is it just a visualization of the physical thing, or is it all the information in mind? And then also, how are you going to use that? So what we really advocate is starting with the end in mind. So what use cases on the back end are you trying to enable as a owner, and what's going to give you the most value? So it could be the design and construction piece of this puzzle is very small and cost-wise as well compared to the overall building life cycle that spans from occupancy all the way through until you decommission or you renovate or tear it down, right? So that life cycle, maybe 30 years, maybe more. So really, when you think about it, a lot of people use a very narrow lens on upfront costs and value. And the value on the owner side is the operations and continuous life cycle of that asset. And use cases vary. It depends, right? So if you're an owner side doing manufacturing, it could be more centered on the assets that you have, the equipment, the process equipment within the environment that you're building. We deal a lot with the manufacturing side, the energy side as well, energy production, specifically nuclear side. That's mainly around operations. It's not only being precise in the builds, but it's how you're going to operate and monitor that building or facility. And then on the tech side is mainly a lot of serial builders. What's the scalability of this look like? And so, really you want to work out what use cases are going to provide the most value and work backwards from that. So that's
Brett, Brett, it's Chris. Your mic just went funny on you.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go.
Okay, and so really you want to work backwards from that. You can go to the next one. From an owner perspective too, you want to make sure that you're capturing information along the way. So it's not just data that you're capturing all the way from concept all the way through turnover. And typically what happens is you get a deliverable either from your AE or GC in different aspects of your project teams, if it's in your contracted deliverables. And really, it could be not what you need in order to operate on the back end of it, or it's an additional cost. By working in a more of a collaborative environment, you're actually capturing all along the way different pieces of data that are going to give you information to make decisions along the way. And really, digital twin is all about the data side. It's all about the information that you're capturing. And, it's smart to do it with a plan at the very beginning and being able to monitor that along the way. It helps a lot. We've seen a lot of reductions in changes, especially late changes that are very costly for owners that we see.
This thing doesn't want to go. There you go.
Okay. One of the biggest things that we see with this is just, it is a new way of doing things for a lot of people, especially on the owner side. And it's really takes a lot of adoption and kind of collaboration and information to really get to that value and get everyone aligned with it on board. And really, I equate it to a lot on the manufacturing side. It's kind of a manufacturing process along the way, if you look at it that way from a building perspective, where you want from the beginning of the projects, you want the GCs and maybe even the facilities management people to at least have a say into the beginning aspects of the projects that you're laying out, especially around this digital thread and how everyone's going to be able to contribute to that and reuse that information along the way. And so, if I equate that back to a manufacturing perspective, you have your design teams that typically throw things over the fence to the manufacturing engineers, and they have to figure out how to build it. And then that gets passed off into the overall kind of life cycle operations people that have to maintain that. And so with this type of approach, you want to make sure everyone's on the same page in a collaborative type environment. The one thing to understand as well is there's not just one software package or one piece of technology that does everything end to end. It is a categorization of different types of technology that have to be knitted together to get what you want on the back end. One of the ways to help with the adoption piece of this is to pilot it. So, constantly adjust along the way, look for areas that need maybe additional training or help or information provided along the way to help smooth out the project team in their journey with it too. The pilot projects, I always advocate for, start small, right? Know what you're doing from a digital twin journey, and then scale it as you move along as part of the adoption pieces. And really kind of the end result, especially if you're a serial builder, and even if you're not, is to be able to reuse this information, right? Reuse it not only in the operations side, if you look at it from just maybe an asset point of view, to be able to reuse, a category or a catalog of different categories of equipment, could be, furniture, fixed equipment, and so on to get reused. Maybe it's the overall design that can be reused. So say you're building manufacturing plants all over the world and you want to make them, pretty much the same. You can use these templates for the different facilities for the environments, but also as part of the assets that are going to be used all in one kind of collaborative environment. That's going to provide a lot of value. What we do from a Gafcon Digital standpoint is really we're an integrator. And so, we focus on the design, the build, the operations piece of it. And we are kind of unique where we are very owner focused. We're an owner's rep in this journey. We're pretty software agnostic depending on what the owner already has. We look at reusing a lot of their technology and knitting it together. And then once it's down for the approach that you're doing, it's very scalable. And we scale these solutions for global clients and very large programs for this. So how we kind of pull this together, we're part of the Digital Twin Consortium. We're represented in almost every subgroup, from manufacturing to marketing to natural resources to the taxonomy group. There is an active effort right now with, as a groundbreaker or groundbreaking, one of the first companies in this, we're working with Dell and Microsoft and Lend-Lease and a lot of very large industry thought leaders around this digital building lifecycle and really defining what digital twin is. And you saw in the very beginning that that definition of what Chris had on the first slide is really what this group is working towards, is doing some commonality. Everyone's talking with kind of the same understanding with different viewpoints and different lenses. How we approach this, we have a 7-step method in our cyber build. And it's basically getting to this digital twin in the operations and the owner side of it. And as you can see through here, it goes through all the different stages. It starts up front from a project strategy point of view. We help implement BIM type approaches, BIM strategies with it, all the way into construction and technology for laser scanning and things like that, all the way to the commissioning, handover, and then the operations tied back into more of a maintenance strategy throughout the life cycle of it. And then as you have this model, it's a lot easier to go in and not only do the operations piece, but then you are in a very good position to do renovations and retrofits and other build outs that you can apply to future projects. Thanks. That's next slide.
Maybe.
Great. So any questions or anything that we can answer?
Yeah, we've got a couple here right now, Brett. So let's see.
Okay.
Can you talk to the overhead burden of capturing required data and formatting inputting into the digital twin? I could see this doubling or tripling the time spent creating the model. It's not clear who pays that cost or where the time required to accomplish the task would be absorbed into the project timeline.
Yeah, I can comment on that. This is a very good question. It's, you know, it's part of that education, you know, from the owner side too. And it depends. I'm gonna give you a depends. If you are already capturing this information along your project lifecycle and you're just not getting it from so, you know, as a typical example, say I'm an owner and I have these concerns. You know, typically this information is being captured by my AE. We'll start off on this, our architect or engineers that we're using on this. And we just don't have a platform in order to incorporate it, or we're not asking for this type of, you know, all of the information. Maybe the AE is using their own different technology around it, right? By having the one environment or you know, a common data environment for that, we're capturing this information along the way. So a lot of it is being built along the project life cycle. And it should not be an added cost. You know, on the very first ones, that's why I'm advocating as well, you know, starting small and kind of scaling as you go, and looking for these reuse opportunities. It may be some additional parameters or information that you want to capture that you're not currently capturing. So that would be either calling it out to an AE or even internal side. On that, you know, say it's a piece of equipment that you're manufacturing that you want to incorporate into the digital twin piece of it down the road, right? That information needs to be mapped out and done. So I think that it's a balance. You know, it is traditionally, you know, that data is out there. You just need to incorporate it back into a common data environment along the way and build from that. And so, you know, that should help a lot with, you know, any submittals that you have, you know, deviations that you're seeing within the construction side, because that information is readily available to that. To put it into the digital twin at the end of the say a project, you know, say it's a building, for instance, right? It should just be part of that handover piece of your project life cycle. And so it may be a little bit more work on the front end in order to incorporate that, but it should be a continuous type of approach that moves along your project life cycle. So, you know, where it's really going to pay the dividends is over that building life cycle. So even if it's, less than 1% of the cost of the initial, data capture or formatting or incorporation of that data, it's going to pay for itself over the life cycle of that building, or especially if you reuse it on the next project. That's where the true savings of it is going to come through.
All right, we got a collection of the questions are coming. So can the data capture be automated, and how?
Okay. So that question, I want to say, depends on, I mean, it's kind of vague, right?
Yeah.
Let me give you some examples. So say it's from your models. Okay, there are certain, depending on what your authoring tool is, you can set it up with scripting that may help you replicate different data parameters that you want to capture. So for instance, on location, say it's a building in a floor in a area within that floor, and that decomposition down of those attributes could be automated to where it's producing your information for your asset tags, for instance. So there's efficiencies you can gain by pulling information from models, pulling information from other data that you have. We see a lot of that automation piece as coming from that data lake, which is basically taking sensor information, that's streaming in real time. Whatever you're doing, from environmental to security type sensors, whatever that is. And then you can use BI and AI type of tools on those large data sets to pull either back into dashboards or back into the digital twin as well.
Let's see, what's next? What is the cost of having this program for small business?
That's a good question. It's
this is for the big boys right now.
Hard question to answer, right? But it's really the payoff for it. I don't think it's for everyone. Let me just put it that way. I think it's for large, I'm going to say large portfolios or serial builders. Say you're building data centers over and over again all over the world. Say it's for large campus type stuff. That's where we see a lot of the benefit, but it's kind of exponential. Now, there are elements you can do this on a lot smaller projects. Say it's just maybe taking the visualization pieces of it, from your models that you have, and be able to showcase those in different ways, basically having a visual model and a way to walk through a space, for instance, which gives you some digital twin aspects of it. There's a lot of really good kind of use cases around that, around the design side, doing what if analysis, changing walls and things like that. That's where I see the smaller types of applications happening. Maybe it's kind of back to your definition. What is a full definition of a digital twin? That's an aspect of it, right? So I think it's scalable that way with certain elements and certain kind of philosophies around it.
Let's see. Why wouldn't you do this from a due diligence forward? Everyone in the food chain benefits from absolute transparency.
Absolutely. And I agree with that, especially if you're an owner. Think, typically from an owner side, even if they have traditionally been very hands-off, and we work with some very large owners where it's really not a money issue with them, it's more of a visibility issue. It's more of an efficiency. How fast can I get that facility ready for whatever that application is? And you're right. I mean, we see a lot of benefit just even from the construction side. You know, on the back end, it's less change orders, less submittals. It's really real-time visualization of what's going on from a construction aspect as well. So it's all the way through the process, from, you know, financial, from the costing, from the scheduling, from the design piece of it to the construction piece of it, and kind of that real time, where are we at any given moment within that project.
Here's another fun one, Brett. What technology companies are behind this effort?
My answer to that is many, right? And
Yeah.
you know, and it's some of the ones that you may not be familiar with as well, right? Because of the different viewpoints of digital twin. You have your, you know, a lot of companies in the design space, you know, all the, you know, technology vendors have some sort of play in this, from design and construction. But think of the product companies as well, right? So, you know, from a product lifecycle management, from a product data management standpoint, you also have a lot of product or equipment designers in that space that get incorporated into this digital twin world. So it's not traditionally just the bigger names in design and construction. It's also the equipment side, also the asset side, which is a big piece of this digital twin.
You know, one of the things I'd recommend, if you want to see who's, you know, just a list of who's playing here, is go take a look at the Digital Twin Consortium. The member list is almost at 150 companies, and that's within 3 months. So another question would be, how would this affect the annual risk underwriting?
You know what, that's a very good question too. We have presented a lot to insurance companies as well, because of exactly that point, where it should reduce the risk quite a bit. And think about it from a claim standpoint. You know, when you're 20 years, maybe not 20 years, but whatever it is, way past occupancy on a specific building, and you have an issue, and say it's a, you know, maybe, you know, a life safety issue or whatever that is, you have some sort of claim, you're able to go back because you have that information that you've captured along the way in the digital twin throughout that project life cycle, and you can point back to the AE or engineering or, you know, engineer of record or whatever that was, because you've captured that information before. We have that whole side of our house as well, where we help, you know, within the litigation pieces of this. And by having this information, it helps the insurance underwriters quite a bit from that, whereas they may actually help in the financing of some of this, you know, projects that they underwrite.
And actually adding on to that, not just underwriting, but also title insurances. I don't know. So how would it affect the annual title insurances? I don't have an answer for that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one.
Anybody else? Bueller? Who owns and maintains the digital twin? The owner.
The owner. Now, so there's a little nuance there, right? I would say from an ownership standpoint, the owner does, but that doesn't mean that they, you know, would, you know, say they don't operate, say they pass that off to a subcontractor that operates their facilities for them, they would actually maintain that. But really, it would still be owner owned. sorry for saying the word twice, but that's kind of the effect. And in that way, you know, if you look at the owner from the top line all the way through, you have different ownership throughout, or people interacting with the owner, you know, from the AEGC and operations side.
I'm not sure.
So
I'm going to ask.
Comment, but just to finish that thought, is some owners are a lot more active in this than others. Let me just put it that way.
And I'm still trying to understand Jim's last question here. I'm thinking is, he keeps adding on. So what is the effect through development and in multiple tenants and NNN? I've got a blank look on my face. Jim, you can reach out to us afterwards and we'll talk through this because I'm not understanding what you're shooting for here. Looks like we might be able to give everybody a few minutes of their day back. Any other
You
questions?
know what? If you look to the last slide, Chris, there you go. If you have any other questions or need anything too, please contact Chris, and then I'll always help Chris out as well. So
he's my partner in crime.
I try.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. It's great to meet with you all today.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity to do this. This is from 25,000 feet. If you've got questions, please reach out. We're here to answer them. Zero pressure. Brett and I have been doing this way too long that there's no pressure here. And we're both, I'd say we're evangelists standing in the town square trying to explain digital twins to the world. So we're here to help and help you on this journey. Thank you so much.
Chris, Brett, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks to all the attendees for spending some time with us today. Please reach out to Chris or Brett as needed relative to digital twin. And if you haven't seen Kahua's website lately, please take a look. It's newly renovated, and that's at kahua.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you all.